Let us discuss what is an object and whether it is ever possible to know an object. So, the objects are what we see around us. Anything that is perceivable by our sense organs can be called as an object. For example, this rose, what we observe by our sense organs for this particular example are specific color, smell, taste, touch, and sound. So, taste is there. We generally don't eat the rose, but if we chew the rose inside our mouth, we will feel distinct taste. And also, if we strike it with any object, there will be a specific sound characteristic of the rose object. Now, these are the five primary desire to perceive from an object that we fulfill by our sense organs. We have five sense organs: the organ to see, the organ to hear, the organ to touch, the organ to taste, and the organ to smell. This is very important topic, that is the sense organ, so I'm going to discuss it separately. It has nothing to do with eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. This is much deeper than that, so it needs separate discussion. So let's come back into the topic of what is an object and is it ever possible to know an object. So let's see what are the primary categories of the objects that we see around us throughout the universe, that is observable universe. Solid, definitely we observe solid, not only rocks, but also glass, ice, you name it. Then comes the liquid, not only water, it can be alcohol or it can be oil, it can be any liquid texture. Then comes the air. Air is not seeable, but we can feel it by our skin, or in much more deeper sense by our organ of touch. Then comes the plasma state or fire in general, because fire and plasma, the way we see it is basically due to the common phenomena, that is the atomic absorption spectroscopy. It it doesn't matter whether it is in the on the surface of the sun or it's happening inside our kitchen in the fire. The same phenomena is happening, that is atomic absorption spectroscopy. Okay, that is a little bit deep. Uh, Maybe we can discuss it separately, but this is the atomic absorption spectroscopy is the reason why we see a distinct color of a flame on the top of the surface of sun or in a stove while cooking. And the fifth object that we see is nothingness. It's nothingness because we cannot perceive it by any of our sense organs, and that's why we name it space. Literally, when we cannot perceive anything, it's called space. Okay, so let's come back into the five aspects that we see for the rose as our example. So among these five aspects, that is the color, smell, taste, touch, and sound, if any one of those changes, then we have to tell that the rose is not the same anymore. It has been changed into something else, maybe some other object with different characteristics. But for day-to-day usage in common sense, we call it's the same thing, but it's not the same thing. We have to be very, very careful here. Okay. So even a slightest change of these parameter, any of these parameters will cause entirely entire change of this object called the rows that we are seeing right now. Okay, so what are the things that we don't see we don't see or hear or taste or touch or smell, but we impose on the object? The size, we don't see any size. The comparison stuff goes on inside our mind. To compare, we need another object. To compare, we need a frame of reference called three dimension, etc., etc. We don't see any of them, but we impose those things in order to measure the size. So this is going on inside our mind. It has nothing to do in the real world. It has nothing to do through our sense organs. The second example is the shape. So the shape of these rows is forming inside our mind after we gather the information of color, smell, taste, touch, and sound, right? The shape is being formed inside our mind. The third aspect is a name. We give it a name, rose. There is nothing written called rose on the top of the rose. We give it a name inside our mind, and this thing is going on inside our mind. It has nothing to do with the outside object, whether it's a rose or it's a sun, moon, whatever. The fourth example is the other comparison aspect, that is whether it is beautiful or ugly. This is also going on inside our mind. The fifth example is young or old. That means whether it's a fresh rose or it's gonna be dying soon, etc., etc. You see, so these are the things that is going on inside our mind. It's not going in the objective level, that is in the in the real world. In the real world, what we see is only the color, smell, taste, touch, and sound. Be very, very honest within yourself and see this. This is the most important thing. We only perceive the color, the smell, the taste, the touch, and the sound. And all the other aspects are going inside our mind. The size, the shape, the name, beautiful or ugly, young and old, bigger or smaller, whatever. Those are going on inside our mind, right? In the objective level, we only see the five aspects: color, smell, touch, sound. These are the things that we perceive. And we observe solid, liquid, air, fire or plasma, or space, right? Okay. So anything that we impose on the outside objective world or on the universe, those phenomena are going on inside our consciousness aspect. It's not mind. Mind is a part of the consciousness, just as the sense organs are the part of the consciousness. Consciousness is the ability to perceive anything, to perceive the objective world, to perceive the thoughts that is going on inside our mind, etc., etc., right? So the consciousness is the ability to perceive anything. Okay, we are going to discuss everything in different slides or different discussions, but those are not today's topic. Today's topic is whether we can ever know an object. Okay, so for this example, let's go one by one the actions that we are perceiving and the reason behind it. So the first action that we are perceiving is the color. Color is an action because of light. So the light is hitting on the surface of the rose and it's producing the absorption emission spectroscopy or a refraction or a reflection, etc., etc., which is producing the color, right? So the actions that we are observing, or we are observing the color, but Color is the product of the action, or to be more general, the action and the color is same, right? Because instantly the absorption emission spectroscopy will produce the color, or it can be refraction that produces the color, or reflection. And the reason for these actions is light as an energy. We don't know what is light, but we know the results produced by the light, right? We know the spectroscopy, we know the refraction, we know the reflection, we can measure, but we don't know what is light, right? Okay. The second aspect is the smell. The smell is depending on the chemical within the flower, which has to be volatile in order to come in the close vicinity of our nose. And that volatility is depending on the heat. Heat is the action that we can feel. The reason or the cause is the thermal energy. Again, hotness or coldness is the action that we are perceiving by our sense organs. We are not perceiving the cause, which is the thermal energy itself. We don't see light, we see the effect of the light, that is the color. We don't feel the thermal energy, we feel the heat or the hotness or coldness produced by the thermal energy. Even the light can produce heat, right? All energies are interchangeable. We don't feel the energy, we feel the effect produced by the energy. Let's be very clear about these things. Okay, the third aspect is the taste. If we chew the flower, what will happen is that the flower has certain chemicals which will be soluble in our mouth. Our mouth has the water in saliva. The compounds has to be soluble inside the saliva or inside the water, and then only we can perceive the taste. Otherwise, it's impossible to taste a solid. The solid has to dissolve inside our saliva, which is water in general, and then only we can perceive the taste, because the tongue has pores, and to enter the pore of the tongue, the molecule has to be soluble inside the water. The solid cannot enter to the pore of the skin, right? It has to be soluble, it has to be break into pieces into the molecules, and the molecules will be solvated by the water, and then it will be entering the pore of the buds of our tongue, and then only we can taste the object. And the solubility depends on solvation energy. This is basically thermal energy, but we name it differently, like solvation energy. So after it's soluble, it releases the heat, and that heat is called solvation energy. We can measure the heat, but the energy is the solvation energy. Okay, the again, the sound is the effect, and the reason or the cause has to be the striking the rose with some other object. It can be hand, it can be some other object. If we hit the rose with any object, it will produce a sound. And that hitting, that is the action, is the cause of kinetic energy, potential energy, or any other energy that will cause movement of an object and hitting that object onto the rose surface. Okay. And the last is the touch sensation. So when we touch the surface of the rose, we feel the smoothness, the roughness. How do we feel that? I mean, we feel the coldness or hotness when we touch anything. Definitely what we are feeling is the action produced by certain energies. So when it is cold or hot, the the cause of coldness or hotness has to be the thermal energy, right? Also, when we bring our skin or our finger close enough to any object, it will produce the repulsion of the electrons present on the molecule. Any close vicinity of two electronic cloud will repel each other, right? And that is the result when we feel a hindrance when we put our hand on any other surface. So in this particular example, if we put our finger on the surface of the rose, we will feel the repulsion. That repulsion is the sensation, touch sensation. If we forcefully put our finger, the 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 rose will be destroyed. If this is not a rose, if this is a stone or rock, then our fingers will be destroyed, right? Okay. So the cause is definitely the electromagnetic energy, the repulsion, or if it is the hot or coldness, then it's the thermal energy. Different energies will produce different sensations. So the actions that we perceive are the effects. The energy that we don't perceive is the cause. Make it very clear, we don't perceive the energy, we can only perceive the effects produced by the energy in terms of hot or coldness, in terms of color, in terms of taste, smell, touch. Okay? So be very careful, be very, very clear about these things. You can ask me any questions regarding this. I will be very happy to answer you or to provide you any further discussion. Okay. So so as we have discussed, all the actions produced by an object and by the energies, different types of energies hitting the object, we perceive those actions caused by the object and the energies which is interacting with the object. We only perceive the actions produced by these two. That is a fact. We only observe the actions produced by the energy and the object. We don't perceive neither the energy nor the object. We only perceive the actions produced by them. Okay? Okay. The second point is, if the energies which are interacting with the object changes the intensity in energy, then the effect will be different, right? If the light which is falling on the surface of the rose in the daytime, the effect will be different. In the night time, when the intensity of the light is less, the effect will be different. We will not see the rose as we see in the day compared to in the night. And also the coldness will produce the less volatility of the compounds, and there will be interference in the smell aspect, etc., etc. So in terms of energy of the surroundings, the object will behave differently, or the actions will behave. The actions will be different. So the actions are basically the behaviors that we are observing for any object when the object is interacting with the surrounding energies. And also based on the surroundings, the object will change the properties. This is an interesting thing to remember, that the surrounding energies are constantly changing, right? It's constantly changing. There is not a single time or single moment when there is a fixed energy between two different moments. In one moment, the energy is fixed. In the next moment, it's different, because it's a continuous change going on in the whole universe, right? Any change in the surroundings will produce a a change in the energy, in the surrounding energy, because it's every object is interacting with all the energies surrounding it. So any movement, anything will produce a change in the energy as well, because the energy and the object, they are interacting with each other. If energy is changing, then the object will behave differently with the energy, or it will interact differently with the energy. Also, if the object is moving or causing any fluctuations or anything, the energy will be hampered. I mean, the energy will be interacting also differently with the object. The fourth point is the same that we just discussed. So throughout the day, there is fluctuations of the energy in the surroundings. It's ever-changing fluctuations in the surroundings. So the interactions or the actions of this flower, this rose, will be ever-changing throughout the day. The actions are changing, or it's not the same for a single moment. So what we are observing is basically the ever-changing behavior or actions for this particular example. So now comes the question, is it possible to know any object? The answer will be no, it's impossible to know any object. Why? Because we are perceiving the behavior or the actions which are ever changing. We are not seeing, or we are not perceiving the object. We are perceiving the behavior of the object. So there comes the opinions of whether the behavior of an object and the object are same or they are different. In both cases, it will be impossible to know the object, because in the first case, when the object and the behavior are not the same, then it's clearly impossible to know the object, right? Because behavior and the object are different, so it's impossible to know the object by knowing its behavior. That's very, very clear. There is no doubt about that sentence or argument. In the second case also, when they are same, that is, an object and its behavior is same, if someone says it is same, then also it is impossible to know the object, because the behavior is changing or the object is changing constantly. There is not a single moment when it is not changing. So any attempt of knowing the object instantly change the object. That is what it is called the uncertainty principle in physics. You try to know it, you already changed it. So it's not possible to know any object in small particle world, also in the large particle world. It's the same principle. You try to know anything, it's not possible to know anything. And this is a very hard fact that we have to accept. And a series of these sort of discussions are coming for all of you who are interested to listen to these sort of discussions. So thank you for listening to this discussion. And if you find this helpful, you can also present this video or this sort of discussion from me to others. Thank you very much for your time.